We have so many of these like preconceived notions about what dinner should look like, and everyone should eat the same, and everyone should enjoy the same foods all the time. And if your kid's eating slightly different than you, or you're eating more of this or that, it's like you're failing. No, like we are different people. We're bio-individual. Like we can, I will do better with a plate that's like mostly meat and some avocado and maybe a couple vegetables. And my husband will eat a massive salad with meat in it. Like it's different, and that's okay.
Today's episode is with the one and only Ashleigh VanHouten. The main topic we're discussing today is how to buy, plan, and prep meals for yourself and your family, regardless of different goals, food preferences, time limitations, and other typical bottlenecks that tend to arise when it comes to meal prep and planning for your entire family. So we get questions about this a lot, and we have a ton of practical tips and strategies that I think will help tremendously in making this process less stressful and actually a little bit more enjoyable. So before we jump into the episode, I have a very exciting announcement to share. My group coaching membership, the Flex Fam, is now open for enrollment. Enrollment only occurs twice a year right now. So if you're interested in joining, this is your chance. You can go to theflexfam.com to learn all about what's involved in the Flex Fam. And really, the main goal of the Flex Fam is helping women to lose body fat, build muscle, and really just become the most confident, badass versions of themselves without the constant restriction and overwhelm that typically comes with some other diet protocols and exercise protocols that are out there. So I have, limited number of spots available, especially right now. It's a tight-knit group of women, and those spots are filling up pretty quickly. So if you're interested at all and you just want to learn more about the program and the membership itself, you can go to theflexfam.com to check it out. All right, let's get into this episode with Ashleigh VanHouten. I didn't do my hair, so it's kind of crazy, but
I went for a walk. That's how I blow dried my hair today. So
I feel like we're always like the last one we recorded, we were both wearing black too.
I mean, it's easy.
I know. I always wear black because if I don't, the shadow of the microphone is weird. So I'm like, I just need to wear black, and then I don't have to think about it.
I think we should keep this little piece in the beginning in the podcast, because
oh my God,
before we go live, we always talk about how our hair is messed up, and I don't know, probably how we're like tired or sweating or like wearing sweatpants or something. And I just think that like maybe the listeners want to hear that. So okay. I think we should keep this.
Well, we're recording, so
exactly.
Should we just start then?
Let's just start then.
Just make sure. Okay, so you can see the doorknobs in the background, so I'm going to cover that up. Oh wait, we're starting. So yeah. Let's go. You go. You.
No clap. You don't have to do the.
Oh yeah. Well, if we already started, then I don't have to do the clap. Usually, I'm clapping for producers.
Okay, no clap, but you clapped anyway.
I just clapped. This
is a
great start.
I like it. I think people want a bit of cash, informal conversations. I know personally, and listen, our listeners can tell us like that was garbage. I listened to garbage for 5 minutes before you told us the interesting stuff. However, my favorite podcasts at this point are ones where like I feel like it's just like my friends having a conversation. So, we don't have to be so polished all the time. And we aren't, but we don't have to pretend to be so polished all the time. Anyway.
We try our best, but
Moving forward, the actual topic today is not whether or not we brushed our hair. The answer is probably not. The topic that we're talking about is we're talking about prepping, meal prepping, cooking. We're talking about prepping meals for families, including families who may all have sort of different goals or preferences for how they like to eat. So, and we got a few questions about this, like in our Muscle Science for Women. We get questions whenever we put it out on social media, like, what do you want us to talk about? A lot of people do have sort of frustrations around how to make like the meal prepping, meal development, recipe, all that stuff, like kind of sustainable and fun and not like a huge, massive chore every day, right? And that is a big topic because food is a massive, constant part of our life, and we want to make it something that's enjoyable and like relatively simple. I talk all the time about how one thing that helps is kind of a reframe about how much time and effort you should be putting into food, because I think we do sometimes have this misconception that like food should be incredibly easy and quick and not take any time, whereas historically throughout sort of human history, eating food, prepping food, cooking food, buying food, all of that was like a really big chunk of people's lives. And I do still kind of stand by that. However, I know that people are busy. I know that not everyone likes to spend an hour every day prepping food. Like people don't want to, they don't have the time to. So it is fine to say like, part of it could be a reframe of like how important this is, and you can make it a family thing and you can spend more time on it. But at the end of the day, there are people who don't want to do that, don't have the time or the means to do that. So how can we kind of like streamline and simplify this process? I have lots of thoughts and I guess ideas, but why don't you maybe start? Because I've been talking for a minute.
No, yeah. I mean, I think we probably both have similar ideas and thoughts or individual ones, which would be awesome if we didn't. I feel like we're always agreeing on things, so I've and we joke about that. But
I feel like everything that we've ever talked about, we generally agree. It's just that it's always on like a scale, and like you might be here and I might be here, or like, you know what I mean? Like we're on like a sliding scale of agreement. I don't think we've ever come across anything that I'm like, I 100% believe this, and you're like 100% disagree. I don't think we've gotten there yet. Not yet. But maybe we just haven't.
And I think that speaks to the nutrition and fitness world as a whole, because like it just shows that there is no one answer. Like there's no absolute, I mean, this is obviously depends on things, but typically within nutrition and training, right, which is a lot of things we talk about, like usually there's no absolute, like there's no like this is the right way, or you know, that's it. Usually there is a sliding scale and there's gray areas, and it depends, right, on the person. So I mean, I think that shows that we are not dogmatic about our views, and that we have experience in this world. Like even 5 years ago, there's probably things where I was like, yes, this is it. But obviously, as we're in this space, you know, working with clients, talking to people, like we learn and we evolve. And I feel like you come to a point where you're just like, all right, well, I was probably wrong 100 times. So now I realize that it does depend on a lot of things. So yeah, now that's off topic. But yeah, I mean, just kind of getting back to, we can just kind of chat through some tips and tricks and things that we maybe implement ourselves. And then just, you know, working with, like I said, we've worked with lots of clients, especially we work with a lot of women, so a lot of moms who are in the position where they, you know, have to prep and cook for their, you know, their families. Not saying that dads don't do that too, but a lot of moms. And so I think one of the biggest things that I found to be kind of beneficial is keeping it as simple as possible, but also planning ahead and like putting in a little bit of effort up front to like plan your week. And it might not even be like, okay, you have to spend hours on Sunday to prep your meals. I'm not really saying that. Like you can totally do that if you want, but it's more so just like going into the week with some overall idea of like what the meals are looking for, specifically for dinner, because that's typically the meal that your family's going to have together. Whereas, you know, breakfast and lunch, kids and everybody else is either at work or at school or whatever it may be. So typically dinner is like that main meal. But one thing, again, is just taking a little bit of time to just plan that ahead of time. Like, what does that look like? And then kind of piggybacking off of that. I feel like one thing that at least I've seen with both myself and clients is getting caught up in recipes and like feeling like we need to make a new recipe every night, or feeling like we have to have like tons of ingredients and extravagant things, you know, especially during the week when it's like already crazy hectic. Keeping it as simple as possible and thinking more so about like one ingredient type meals where it's like a meat, so like a protein source with obviously some fat coming with that, a veggie source, maybe a starchy carb source, and just like breaking it down in that way, I found to be super useful versus trying to look up recipes every week and trying to like make all these new recipes. Obviously recipes are great, and like there's some that are a lot more simple than others, especially if you found a few that you want to put in rotation. But typically from a simplistic standpoint, and you know, getting away from making things more complex than they need to be, just finding like a meat and a veggie. And obviously this is going to be dependent on your particular, what you're eating. So if you're a vegan or vegetarian, obviously you have to find a different protein source. But I will say one more thing on that before I stop talking and let you talk. But one quick tip that I found in terms of the meat style, looking at just meats overall and prepping ahead if you do decide to do that. I mean, I do this for myself, and this is something that you could totally do for your family, is just actually prepping some type of meat ahead of time. Like on Sunday, maybe you put 5 pounds of chicken in your slow cooker, and you just put like some salt and pepper and maybe a little broth in there, and you just cook it so that it shreds down. And you keep the seasonings really simple so that when during the week you can just add your own different types of, seasonings or sauces. So for example, if one night you want to have barbecue chicken, right? You can just add barbecue to that one night. Or one night you want to make some like an Asian style dish, or I don't know, what other types of sauces go well with chicken? I don't know, maybe your kids are like, I just want chicken with ketchup or something. So they can, put their ketchup. It sounds weird, but that was me as a kid.
I think a lot of people do that. Yeah.
Yeah. But really just like keeping it simple and just bulk prepping your protein, but not necessarily making a specific recipe or like seasoning all of it one way. You could do that throughout the week, and that's just super simple. And you could do that with different meats, right? So like have chicken, have maybe shredded beef, and you kind of use different sauces throughout the week and make something out of that, and then just add some veggies or add, a starch on top of that, and just keep it as simple as possible. That's one key thing that I found helps a lot, is just bulk prepping protein, because that's typically the one that's hardest to kind of come by, and the one that people struggle with the most is the protein. So yeah, what do you think?
I had that on my list to say, because I think that's a fantastic idea. And you can do that with vegetables too. Like, pre-prep, like cut some vegetables, like just simple roast some sweet potato, like all kinds of things. Then you can throw them back into a pan with some different spices and sauces. And you can throw things into an air fryer after you've, roasted them so that they get crispy. Like there's all kinds of different ways you can just sort of prep a bunch of stuff and then make it differently throughout the week as per how you're feeling or what you have time for. So I think that's a really good suggestion. One of the things that was like a bigger topic that I wanted to just kind of talk about is the challenge when different family members have different eating styles. And I don't really have the answers. We can talk about it, but I mean, I know, for example, and this isn't like carnivore versus vegan. I don't know how these two people would end up like partners in a house together anyway, but I think it does happen, whatever. But like, as an example, my husband and I, we both eat like whole foods, paleo, whatever, healthy, right? But he eats way more vegetables than me, like way more. And for a while, he would really try to encourage me to eat more vegetables. He's like, just like, look at all these vegetables. Look at this beautiful salad. Like, just eat some more. And I'm like, dude, like, I'm cool over here. Like, I'm very happy with the food that I'm eating. Which one of us gets sick more, by the way? Like, I'm fine. Okay. I'm healthy and thriving with my diet. You're happy with your diet over there. They can be different. And all jokes aside, we prep the same food. We just would put like different amounts on our plate. And I think that, again, we have so many of these like preconceived notions about what dinner should look like. And everyone should eat the same, and everyone should enjoy the same foods all the time. And if your kid's eating slightly different than you, or you're eating more of this or that, it's like you're failing. No, like, we are different people. We're bio-individual. Like, we can, I will do better with a plate that's like mostly meat and some avocado and maybe a couple vegetables. And my husband will eat a massive salad with meat in it. Like, it's different, and that's okay. So prep all the foods, and then you kind of pick and choose what works. So like, that's one kind of quick answer that I have for people who maybe aren't like diametrically opposed, excuse me, but, maybe eat like slightly different. But I mean, I guess if you're a paleo, whole foods, meat eater, carnivore-ish person, and for some reason the person you're sharing meals with every day is a vegan, prep vegetables and prep meat, and they'll eat the vegetables and you eat the meat. Like, it doesn't have to be an argument, And I think that this is kind of top of mind to me now, because I have a kid now who has not yet entered like the toddler picky stage that I'm sure is going to be really fun, but it's really kind of a magical time for me right now because he's 8 months old and he eats very well. He eats a lot and he eats everything. Like it's almost like a joke at this point, the kind of like combinations and weird foods that I will give him just to see if he'll eat them, and he will eat everything, everything. And it's just fantastic and I love it. But what I'm trying to do is prep him to try a variety of things that he's used to, his palate is used to different textures and different flavors, and see and have him at the table with us so he sees us eating. So he's eating the same things we're eating, first of all, like no different baby food. He's eating just mushed up or whatever versions of what we're eating. And we're going to continue that. And I've talked to other people who have young kids because we often get like, responses from people who have picky toddlers who are like, just wait, like you're naive, like it'll happen. There is a developmental thing that happens when kids are toddlers where they do become picky. And some of it is maybe textural issues or preferences, but some of it is more about like boundary setting and like control over their own autonomy. Like it's not so much that they can't eat anything anymore. It's that they are learning how to say no, and I want to do this, or I don't want to do this. Mm-hmm. So a lot of it is more of like strategy than it is about the actual food. But when it comes to like, we want to eat healthy food and we want our kids to eat the healthy foods that we're eating, but all they want to eat is like beige, like chicken fingers or whatever. I know it sounds like this naive thing, but if you don't have it in the house, if they've never eaten it, they don't know how delicious French fries and chicken fingers are. Like, yeah, eventually they're going to go to a birthday party. Eventually they're going to leave the house and eat those foods. That's fine. But for the first couple of years, they don't have to, because they're eating what you put in front of them. And if you're only putting the foods that you're eating in front of them, that's it. Like, that's it. And I kind of feel like that's similar with older kids too. It's like what you and I know about nutrition is that, generally speaking, for a generally healthy kid, if they skip dinner because they're not feeling whatever you put in front of them, they're not going to die. They're not going to starve. They'll be fine. Like, offer them what you're making. And if they don't like it, you don't have to fight. You don't have to force them to stay at the table. You can say, okay, put your dish away. See you later. If you get hungry later, it'll be there. Or, there's a healthy snack in the fridge. Like, if you want to eat that later, okay, like whatever, so it's like providing the environment so that just the healthy food is there and you're all kind of eating similarly, but you don't have to eat exactly the same. Like, I just think that we create extra complexity and we create fights that don't need to happen, and like you said, most people are busy enough and stressed enough and things are hectic enough throughout the week. Like, do you need to fight with a 4-year-old who doesn't want to eat the chicken that they loved yesterday? No, you probably don't. Just, they don't have to eat it. They don't have to eat it, Yeah.
Anyway. No, yeah, I agree. I think what you said about, and I think we talked about this in the last podcast, or one of the podcasts we recorded. There's been a lot. Just like setting your environment up for success, right? We talk about that when it's for yourself, right? Setting your environment up so you don't have the hyperpalatable foods, in your pantry or in your refrigerator and all that stuff. I mean, that goes the same with just other people in your house, right? Like you said, one thing to think about is like, if your kids are, like, if you take your kids grocery shopping, right? And that is something that you bond over, but it's causing them to like go down the aisles and be like, can we get this? Can we get that? And then you end up just kind of giving in and like you want to say yes because, it's your kid. And then you end up having this stuff in your house that are obviously less nutritious, hyperpalatable foods that they're like at dinner and they're like, oh, I don't want to eat this, amazing shredded chicken. I want the honey bunches of oats that are in the cabinet with some milk, right? But they're in the cabinet because you gave in and let them purchase them at the store. They don't have money. It's your money, right? So if that's, obviously there's some different things with that and it's obviously easier said than done. But if that's something that you're seeing as an issue, then maybe you don't take your kids to the grocery store shopping with you. Maybe you make that you go to the grocery store, you get the things that you want to stock your house with, you lead by example, right? Especially as they're, growing up, right? So for me, like, we were never allowed to have, and this is also going to come back to your personal knowledge and education. So if you're listening to this podcast, then I'm sure you know a good amount about nutrition. If you've listened to us talk before,
because you listen to this podcast.
Exactly. So you know that like honey bunches of oats and Cheerios are probably not the best choice for breakfast foods. But like for me, for example, growing up, we weren't allowed to have soda in the house, but we were allowed to have 5 different types of cereal because my parents didn't have the knowledge of that cereal's not that great as a breakfast food. They saw the heart healthy label on the box and were like, oh, this is fine, right? This is normal, having cereal with skim milk. But if you're listening to this podcast, hopefully you have a little bit more background in that. Yeah. So you're leading by example, right? You're filling your fridge and your pantry with the foods that you know are going to be conducive to a healthy lifestyle. And you're going to be teaching your kids you're going to be teaching them how to feel good while they're eating those things. Then when they do go to that birthday party and have the chicken fingers and the French fries and the cake and the cookies and all that stuff, and then they come home with a stomach ache, they'll start to learn, oh, maybe this isn't that great. I feel like crap now. But it's that process that you're going through. You're not like kind of cutting them off from that, but you're saying, hey, let's set our personal environment up with the foods that we know nourish us and lead to, lots of protein, lead to building strong muscles and being healthy overall, right? That's the education that you need to give them, but you're really leading by example. Another thing that I was going to say that I've totally forgot, so you can go.
Maybe I've got something geared up here while you think of your thing.
Yeah, you go.
I like what you're talking about, like the idea too of like setting boundaries and having choices. It doesn't have to be so black and white again as we make it, where it's like, okay, we want them to eat chicken breast and broccoli and they won't, so let's feed them chicken fingers instead. And this goes for adults too. This isn't like a parenting kid podcast, because what the hell do either of us know? But whatever.
Especially me.
But anyway, it's the idea of like, okay, well, if you do have to take your kids grocery shopping because no one else is going to watch them while you go get groceries, you can say, look, we're not going down the cereal aisle, but if you're suddenly today, you don't like strawberries and raspberries anymore, even though you've been eating them for a week, well, we're getting a fruit. So why don't you go pick a fruit? Like, they get to choose, or maybe you say, instead of, well, what fruit do you want? You can say, okay, we're getting oranges or we're getting apples. Which one do you want? Like giving them choice, but it's a choice within a range that you still feel comfortable with. And you can also do that again for adults, because we get picky too. We get bored of things too. We get like, oh, I eat salmon so much. I'm so tired of salmon. Like, I don't want to eat any more salmon. I hope my husband is listening to this podcast. Like, stop making salmon. We eat so much. Salmon's delicious, whatever. But like, if we meal prep bison, like this is what I've got in my fridge right now. We'll meal prep bison. We've got salmon. We've got chicken hearts. We've got a variety of things. And again, they're simply prepped, like you were saying earlier, so that tonight when we go down and have dinner and he's having his salad with fish and I'm just like, oh, like I don't want to have salmon with fish. Guess what? I can have chicken hearts and bison and like a little bit of sweet potato that's left over, because it's all there and we're kind of picking and choosing, but we've got options within a range. It's like, if you only have salmon and salad in there and I freak out, I'm going to go run out and buy some garbage. I'm not going to go out and get like a healthy secondary version. I'm going to get like something that, because I'm hangry now and I'm irritated. So having options within the boundaries that are okay for you and your family is good. And I wrote some stuff down. I had another comment about the grocery shopping thing. So another option you can do, and I know you did just say like, you don't have to adhere so strongly to recipes, and that's absolutely accurate. You don't ever have to follow a recipe ever in your life if you don't want to. Some people do like to, right? Some people, it gives them like inspiration and ideas and it keeps things interesting. So one concept, and this might be simple to some people, but I never used to do it, so it's not simple to me. Instead of going to the grocery store and buying a bunch of stuff that you normally buy and then coming home and figuring out what you can make with it, you go through your cookbooks, and maybe this is a family affair, you get your family, your kids, whatever, like everybody pick 2 or 3 recipes for this week. And then you list all those ingredients, and then you go to the grocery store and you get those ingredients. So then you have what you need. You also are like, setting intentions. You're like, these are the recipes. This is what we're doing. Here's the ingredients. Let's go. And then it takes some of that like wandering around and just picking whatever looks good at the grocery store. You're not really doing that because you've got a goal. So that's another idea.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And let me go back and say that recipes are not bad. You have 2 cookbooks. I have a cookbook with over 100 recipes. Like, recipes are great to give you ideas and to help you find, some new things, especially if you're getting, bored of whatever you're doing. I was just kind of prefacing that you don't have to follow recipes. You don't have to go make extravagant
There it is.
meals every single night, especially if you're busy and you're working and all of that. But recipes can definitely be useful, and I love what you said about that. You know, like, and that comes back to the pre-planning, right? Plan it out. Take a little bit of time to do that ahead of time, because it's going to save you so much more time during the week.
Yeah.
And it's going to save you that stress that comes with, oh man, like it's 5:00. What am I going to make for dinner tonight? Right? Like, you don't have to, that's another thing too. Like, you already have all these other stressors that are going on throughout the day, throughout the week, right? Especially if you're busy and you're trying to, you know, stick to your own nutrition plan, stick to goals that you have, your training, your kids, whatever. Like, why don't we take the stress from meal planning and thinking about what we're going to make for dinner tonight and just put a little bit of time up front so that you don't have to worry about that. And that comes with anything that you're doing, right? So putting a little bit of work up front to get that massive reward through the rest of the week. And then just piggybacking off of one thing that you were saying before too about having options for dinner. I think one thing that people might stress out about is feeling like they have to, like, if they're sitting down to dinner with their family, like they all have to be eating the same thing. And I think that's something that we need to think about a little bit too. It's like, you can still absolutely enjoy an amazing dinner and the time that you're with your family eating the same exact food. That doesn't have to be a thing. Like, it doesn't matter, right? The important part is that you're spending time, you're, you know, having a meal together. But who cares if one person's eating something, one person's eating something else, you're eating something completely different? Like, who cares, right? You're sharing that meal together. And yes, maybe there's some times where you want everybody to be eating the same thing. Maybe you, like, you know, on a Sunday night dinner, for example, you all eat the same thing on Sunday night, but maybe during the week when people are, you know, have their own nutrition going on and things like that, it's totally fine to eat different things, right? So I think that's something that you also have to normalize within your own household, that it's okay to do that. Because I know for me, that is something that I struggle with a little bit. Like, if I had a specific goal that I was trying to reach, and maybe I didn't want to, you know, if my mom was cooking dinner and she was making something that had like maybe a little bit more fat or calories in it than I wanted to consume at that meal, then I would kind of have to go and prep my own other thing. And so at first I was kind of hesitant to do that. And I didn't like feel comfortable doing that because everybody else was eating that meal and I was like kind of over here. Because it's also one of those things where it's like, you feel like maybe you're being disrespectful because you're not eating that food, right? Or like and this goes with going over someone else's house as well, but it's all about kind of owning it, right? And being like, all right, these are the goals that I have. And I know that I need to make these choices to get there. And sometimes I'm going to have to, you know, switch some things around, and that's okay, right? There's no shame in that. And so I think that's something to also realize, that you, like, when you're sharing that meal, it's about being with those people. It's not about the actual food that you're eating. And you can even simply think about it as you go out to dinner with someone, like, does everybody order the same exact meal that's on the menu?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Like, everybody orders their own thing, but you're having that interaction, you're having that gathering. That's the important part. So something I just wanted to mention, because I know that I've struggled with that in the past.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with you. And just to add kind of like a tough love spin on it, I'll say, like, I'll just take it a step further, that like a lot of people who have these goals or these self-imposed kind of diets, and then they make this big deal about like, but I have to be the one who's like eating out of my Tupperware, or like never eating the carbs or whatever. And it's like, okay, well then don't do it, or suck it up, or like you said, own it. Like, you're the one making the big deal out of it. Like, yes, I totally understand the concept that you were saying of like being respectful. Like, if you go to like, you know, your grandma's house and she wants to feed you, and you're like, there's extenuating circumstances, but generally speaking, like, I had so many, especially when I was doing like the competitive bodybuilding thing, like so many people who would complain about like, oh, my social life's so messed up now because I can't go out and I can't do this. And when I go to friends' houses or when I'm having my dinner, I have to be the weird one. I'm like, you're making it weird. Like, if you feel strongly enough about this, that this is how you've decided to eat, and you can say that tactfully and like casually to anybody that you're sharing meals with, like, hey, I've got this goal. This is how I'm eating. It is what it is. Let's move on. If you make a big deal out of it and you sigh and, oh, I have to eat this and you're eating that, and I'm the weirdo over here eating this way, like, you're the one doing that. Like, just either own it and do it, or don't do it, because you've decided to do it. No one's forcing you to do it, and you can stop anytime. So if you're gonna it's just like if you're gonna set up this goal to like look a certain way for a photo shoot or bodybuilding, and then you're gonna complain about it at every meal, that makes you way more unbearable than just eating healthy all the time in front of other people. Like, and I figured this out during bodybuilding because I'm like, I want to. This was pre-COVID when I actually was social and went out and did things with other people, and I'm like, I want to continue doing that. I want to hang out with other people. I want to have a social life. So instead of every time I went to a friend's house, like announcing, like, here's me eating my stuff over here. Like, you just be there. Like you said, you just enjoy your time, and they're going to eat and you're going to eat, and who cares? And you can make a little joke about it if you want, but like, you're generally the one making a big deal out of it. And if your mom or your grandma wants to make a big deal out of it, you can kind of laugh it off and just say, hey, grandma, this is what I'm doing for a couple of months. Like, I'll be eating the cake again at some point. Just be there. That's, like you said, it's not that big a deal, and you're choosing to do it. So get over it. Another quick point.
Couldn't agree more.
Another quick point. And I feel like we've said this before, and I do kind of feel like it's common sense, but I think it bears reminding because we forget when we get stuck into our ruts, is that there is no meal appropriate food. So you can make protein pancakes at dinner, and you can eat casserole and like zoodles and whatever at breakfast. That's another thing. We get stuck in this thing. And I am guilty about it, especially in the mornings, where I'm like, if I don't feel like eating eggs, I eat eggs 99.9% of the mornings. Like, I just always eat eggs. But if I'm like not feeling it for some reason, I'm like, well, what do I eat? Like, it's breakfast. I have to eat eggs. Like, what else can I eat? You can eat whatever you want to. Like, you can eat that salad that you love to eat, or you can eat the bison and the sweet potato, or you can make a shake, or you can, whatever you want to do. And maybe kids will like that too. Again, if you're talking about families, like, I personally think breakfast is the best meal of the day. I would eat it for every meal. Maybe your kids feel that way too. So make bacon and eggs and avocado breakfast and like dinner. Little frittata things and cute, like stuff like that. You can do that for dinner. So yeah, just like kind of step outside any box that anybody's telling you have to do a certain thing for meals, or you have to eat a certain way, or it has to look a certain way. That's not the case. And like you said, you have to set your own kind of schedule and whatever foundation within your own family, and do what works for you. So yeah, breakfast for dinner is what I'm saying.
Yeah, for sure. No, I literally said this to a client yesterday because she said, I am trying to, we're trying to work through some allergies and some things like that. And she is basically cutting down on eggs and dairy to kind of see if that helps. She's like, do you have any ideas for breakfast foods that aren't eggs and dairy? And so I was like, all right, well, let's get a little bit outside the box, take yourself away from thinking about traditional breakfast foods, because typically they'll have eggs and dairy in them, and start to think about, like you said, have bison and zoodles for breakfast,
Chicken
or whatever
wings,
you want. Yeah. There's no, like, you make your own standard. There's no standard anymore. It doesn't matter, right? And so I love that you made that point, because we're kind of like, either we grow up on these things, or it's just part of society, just like anything else, right? Breakfast is the biggest meal of the day. We've learned that, and for some people it is. For some people it's absolutely not, because they don't eat breakfast, which is totally fine. So it's just finding what works for you, and experimenting with different things, and kind of taking a step to experiment and see, what you feel good with, and that's really it. So
Yep.
Yeah.
One last kind of just tangible thing that I would say, and then we can probably, I think, wrap it up. I feel like people have enough tough love from us for one day. Going back to the idea that, like, if you cook simply and you don't try to overcomplicate meals, one way, if you're kind of like a visual person, or you like to do this like collaboratively with your family, that you could do is you can kind of make like your lists of your proteins, your fats, your carbs. And then I feel like we have talked about this or done it in the past or something, and then you could also do like sauces, spices, applications, whatever, as another column. And you just kind of list all the things your family likes to eat. So it's like chicken, beef, shrimp, salmon, whatever. And then the carbs, the fats. And then you literally just, like, you can close your eyes and just pick, but just pick one from each category, because they all kind of work together. Like, again, who says that, potato doesn't go with fish, or broccoli doesn't go with this or that, or whatever. Like, just pick a protein, pick a carb, pick a fat, add some different spices, or you're going to air fry it when you usually pan bake it or whatever, and just like kind of pick, and then just see what happens. Because sometimes that like spur of the moment, let's just throw some things together. It's simple. It shows you how versatile all these things are. You don't have to think about it too hard. And you might come up with a new combination of things. Like I'm still just like, for example, air frying things that like normally I would like sheet pan bake or like I would like fry or whatever, like, and I'll like do it just differently for whatever reason. And it ends up like way more delicious, like, so I'm just like, oh, I just like I just cook something differently that I cook every week. And I just did it slightly differently, and it's different and it's delicious and it's fun. It's like something that, just kind of spiced it up a little bit. So that kind of matrix, I think, just like picking, not overthinking it, could also be another simple way of like, I'm not doing anything crazy. It's still within the realm of all the things I normally eat. We're just going to switch it up a little bit. That could be another thing that you do.
100%. And I just thought I'm going to talk a little bit more and then we can wrap it up, because you just made me think of more things. So with the matrix, I love that. And that is also, if you are someone, and I know one of the original questions we got is, or at least I've gotten in the past, is like, how do I track my macros and fit this into my, being able to eat with my family, but also, like being able to track my food, right? Because that's an issue that I see, or complex complexity and adds complexity to tracking macros, especially with dinner and foods like that. So like you said, keeping it simple and keeping those like one macronutrient foods can make that so easy, rather than trying to go in and like track an entire recipe or something like that. It's like, all right, I got my steak, I got my vegetable, I got my starch, is this a lean steak or a fatty steak? If it's a fatty steak, then I might not need to add any fat to it. If it's a leaner steak, maybe I add a little bit of butter to it or whatever, right? So you're kind of, that's how your matrix is looking, and you're kind of like building your plate from that, right? So I love that. Another thing to think about, and this is what I do too, like you don't necessarily, I'm pretty sure that I've eaten the same 3 dinners for the last like months, because I enjoy them. Like I found 3 different types of dinners that I enjoy. One is a stir fry, like an Asian type stir fry.
That's my least favorite thing in the world. We finally found something that we disagree on. Did you see in my Instagram the other day, we were talking about, I did like this like question thing, or like tell me unpopular whatever in the stories.
I think I saw that.
And someone was like saying kale is gross. And I was like, the following vegetables are gross. Okay. And I eat
baby
anything,
corn.
Okay? I am the organ meat queen. All right. I will eat some less than delicious things, but baby corn and
is an atrocity. That's exactly what you said.
Water chestnuts and celery, I said, can all burn in hell. That's what I said. And I stand by it. I stand by it. Stir fries, no. So like, this.
I love
like,
that we get together.
When we get together, if you really want to be mean to me, you will make me a stir fry, because no, it's not happening.
No, I'm just kidding.
No.
I love that we disagree on that. Second all, I was literally dying when you responded to my story one day. And usually I don't put baby corn in my stir fry. And this is another tip I'm going to give because I want to talk about it. But it was just in the frozen stir fry veggies that I got in that time. And it was like different than I usually get. So it had baby corn. And you like, you responded to my story and you're like, baby corn is an atrocity. And I was like dying laughing.
I feel strongly about food, both positively and negatively. Seriously, what is baby corn? Like, do you actually eat that? Do you put baby corn in your mouth and chew it? And you're like, this is good. This is something that I enjoy. Like, really?
If you flavor it with stuff, I don't know. Ugh. But yeah, I mean, I don't usually eat baby corn, but it was in that stir fry blend. But I do enjoy water chestnuts because they're just super crunchy. So I am a fan of those.
Celery?
But celery, I will eat if it is there. I used to hate it, but if it's like, I don't know.
It's just
like
useless.
If I'm out
What's the point? You're going to spend money on that? Put it in your fridge? Open your fridge, be like, oh, look, there's some celery. I'm going to eat that? No.
Unless you make like those little ants on a log thing.
No.
I'm sure you hate those.
No.
Anyway.
Just eat the peanut butter.
Oh my God. But you need a vehicle. I guess you don't.
Oh, you don't.
You can use your hand.
There's no rules.
Really, just stick your whole hand in the peanut butter jar.
That's correct.
Like, that would be amazing.
Correct.
what was I saying? Okay, yes, stir fries. Ashleigh hates them. I love them. So I love them because they're the way that I make them is super simple. Like I will pre-prep my meat, right? So for example, what I typically do on Sundays, and I'll just give a little background because you got time to give your background of your meals. So typically I will take like a big roast, like a shoulder, like a beef shoulder. I get mine from Butcher Box or locally here, and I'll put that in the slow cooker or the pressure cooker, and I will just add spices, just general spices, and then I'll use that throughout the week. Like I'll shred it up, and then I'll use it, like I said, either I'll add barbecue sauce to it or I'll add it to like a stir fry with sweet chili sauce. So that's like the red meat. I always like to have like a red meat during the day, and then typically a white meat if I do like chicken or pork or something. So I'll do kind of the same thing with chicken. So I'll just have all these different varieties of protein. So typically it's been chicken, like a shoulder beef roast that's shredded, and then bison, like ground meat. And I'll use that for stir fry either. So I'll have that ready to go. And then for me, I'm lazy. So my entire freezer is half frozen meat. I have a bunch of bison in there because I bought like 20 pounds of it a little while ago from Nebraska bison. I don't know. It's really good though. They were at a conference that I was at a few years ago, and their bison is amazing. But anyway, it's frozen meat and then frozen veggies and frozen fruit. So I'm super lazy, like I said, and typically the only vegetable that I will cut up and use throughout the week, unless I'm making like a specific recipe, is just zucchini, because I love zucchini. Pro tip, cooking zucchini in bone broth is amazing, and it takes like 5 minutes, and you probably see me post this on my story like every day because I eat it every day. But frozen veggies are so simple, especially you were talking about the air fryer. And so if you don't have an air fryer, just go buy an air fryer because they're amazing.
So good.
You can take frozen veggies that are typically like you microwave them. They're like, oh my God, this is disgusting because they're just like gross and mushy. But try this. Take frozen broccoli if you want to, or any frozen veggie, and put it in the air fryer. It comes out awesome, like in 10 minutes. And then you can season it with whatever you want. So you don't have to, that's another like super simple thing. Like think about how you can make your life as easy as possible. Frozen veggies are amazing. And if you get organic frozen veggies, people are like, oh, they're less nutritious than, fresh vegetables. That's actually completely not true. Mm-hmm. Because especially if you're getting your vegetables from like the grocery store versus, if you're getting from the farmer's market or you're, growing them yourself, that's amazing, right? Those are going to be great. But if you're getting vegetables from an average grocery store, even if they're organic, how long do you think they've been sitting there? Or like, what was the transport time from Mexico or wherever the heck they're coming from, versus when you get organic veggies that are frozen, they're like frozen right at their peak of freshness, right? So they're locking in those nutrients when they're frozen. Same goes for fruit, right? So frozen veggies are just as, if not more, nutrient dense than fresh veggies, especially if we're talking about grocery store here, right? Mm-hmm. So I typically, the only vegetables that I have in my vegetable drawer on a average basis are zucchini and cucumber, and the rest are frozen. And then obviously like tubers and squash. Like we can't forget about squash.
Your
I don't get
500 squashes that you like.
Yeah, I get squash fries.
Crazy person's squash closet.
Yes, and that's those are my starches. So I have frozen veggies as like my non-starchy vegetable. I know you don't love vegetables, but I do. Another thing that we disagree on. Semi-disagree on. So then I have my meats, and then my starches are typically just squash that I roast. I literally cut it in half, put salt and cinnamon on it, throw it in the oven, and then it's there for the week. And I cut it up and put some nut butter on it or whatever I feel like. And then I have eggs and yogurt. And that's those are the staple foods that I know that I enjoy. And so I make different things out of them. And that's totally fine. Like I said, I eat pretty much the same types of things each day, but I really enjoy them and I look forward to eating them because I know that they fit within my goals and they make me feel good and they fill me up. So that's kind of one thing, just like think about, okay, what are the foods that make me feel good, fit within my goals, and keep me full? Then use that as your base. And then every once in a while, or Sunday nights, typically I'll try like a new recipe or a Friday or whatever it is. But keep it simple, because simple is what's going to make things less stressful. And I'm going to stop talking now.
You have made me eat more squash lately, so you have influenced me. I never was against squash. I just kind of didn't think about it. And then for a while, we were on like a spaghetti squash rip, and it's really good with a lot of butter and garlic. But the butternut squash, like there was another one, not acorn. There's another one that's really good. Anyway, squash is good.
Honey nut?
Maybe. No one likes it as much as Rachel, but it's good.
Kabocha?
It might have been kabocha that I actually tried. Yeah. They're very good.
Yeah.
Team squash. I'm on team squash. I'm just not the captain of the team like you are.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
all right. Well, I hope that this was helpful for people. I do think that there is some tangible takeaways from this, like keep it simple. Nobody's rule. You don't have to follow anybody's rules, but your own. You make your own, and at the end of the day, it's like, do what works for you personally. Try to have fun with it. I do think is a good message too, because you can be busy and you want to like simplify things, and maybe you're not a cook, maybe you don't love to be in the kitchen, but it is a massive part of your life. So you can find ways to be positive and enjoy it and make it a family thing, and see the value in it. I think that's a good takeaway too.
Yeah.
But yeah, maybe if people have more questions, if they like want more kind of specifics about how we prep or, anything else, you can, where to find us. You can ask us more questions, but I think this was a good debate, conversation, whatever.
Conversation. We both got to ramble on about
things we love and don't love.
I love that.
Oh yeah. Also, in summary, F baby corn. It is the worst food on the planet. I want people to respond to this and be like, I want to hear from like the baby corn lovers of the world. I want you to convince me that baby corn should even be a food that exists. I welcome it. Bring it on. Okay. Talk to me about baby corn, guys.
All right.
Should
we just name this podcast Baby Corn?
Baby corn is an atrocity. Should be the name of this podcast. And clap.
Thanks for tuning into this episode with Ashleigh. I hope you enjoyed it and were able to take away practical tips and strategies to help plan and prep meals for both yourself and your family. So another quick reminder that my group coaching membership, the Flex Fam, is open for enrollment. If you're not seeing results with what you're currently doing and you're not ready to invest in one-on-one coaching, this group coaching membership is definitely for you. FlexFam members get exclusive access to me and my proven nutrition, exercise, and personal development protocols to help you become the most confident, badass version of yourself. I say that a lot, but that's what we do. So we have limited spots and they're already filling up quickly. So if you're interested in joining and you want to learn more about it, just go to theflexfam.com and you can check out all the details there. All right, I'll see you next time.